Caitlin Clark scored only 12 points against the Las Vegas Aces. Indiana still won by 34. Before the night was over, Clark had also reached 600 career assists faster than any player in WNBA history. At first, those facts seemed to fight each other. A superstar scores 12 points. Her team wins 109-75. She makes history in the same game. So what actually made this performance important? The answer was not one deep three. It was not a late scoring explosion. It was the way Indiana controlled the game without asking Clark to carry every possession. Clark finished with 12 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists in 24 minutes. That is a useful line. It is not the kind of line that usually takes over a headline. Then you look at the final score. Indiana did not survive a close finish. Indiana overwhelmed Las Vegas. Kelsey Mitchell scored 27 points. Sophie Cunningham scored 20. Aaliyah Boston added 19 points and 11 rebounds. 3 teammates scored more than Clark. That was not a problem. That was the point. For most of her time in the league, every conversation about Clark has started with scoring. The range, the pull-up threes, the sudden bursts that can change the energy of an arena. Those moments are real. They are also easy to see. But this game asked a different question. Can Indiana dominate when Clark does not dominate the scoring column? For one night, the answer was yes. And the clearest evidence did not arrive when Indiana was already ahead by 30. It arrived when Las Vegas cut the lead to 4. With 3 minutes and 28 seconds left in the third quarter, Indiana led 66-62. The game was alive again. The Aces had pressure. The crowd had energy. One more mistake could have erased most of the work Indiana had done. This was the moment when a team can lose its shape. A star can force a bad shot. A point guard can hold the ball too long. Teammates can stop trusting the offense and wait for one player to rescue them. Indiana did none of that. The Fever won the rest of the game 43-9. A 4-point game became a 34-point victory. That is the sequence that gives this performance its real meaning. Indiana did not need Clark to become a different player. It needed every player to make the right decision. Mitchell attacked. Cunningham punished open space. Boston controlled the paint and the glass. Clark scored when the opening was there, moved the ball when pressure arrived, and allowed the offense to continue through the next advantage. The Fever did not have one answer. They had several. That changed the entire problem for Las Vegas. When Clark crossed half court, the first defender still had to respect her range. That attention mattered even when she did not shoot. If the defense stepped higher, space opened behind the first line. If another defender moved toward the ball, someone else became available. If the defense stayed attached to Mitchell and Cunningham, Boston had room to work closer to the basket. Indiana did not need every possession to end with Clark. It only needed the possession to begin with a clear read. That is where the box score can become misleading. An assist records the final pass before a made basket. It does not record every pass that moved the defense. It does not record every early decision that stopped a trap from forming. It does not record the pressure created by a shooter standing far beyond the three-point line. Clark finished with 6 assists. One of them pushed her to 600 for her career. She reached that mark in only 72 games. No WNBA player reached 600 faster. That does not make her the career assists leader. It means she reached the milestone at a record pace. The distinction matters because it reveals how quickly playmaking became central to her value. Casual fans may still see Clark as a scorer first. That makes sense. Her deepest shots produce the loudest reactions, but 600 assists tell a broader story. They show a player who has been creating opportunities for teammates at a historic rate. Her 6th assist against Las Vegas went to Monique Billings, who finished the play. That pass completed the milestone. It also captured the larger theme of the night. Clark created the chance. A teammate completed it. Indiana benefited from both parts. The Fever needed that kind of connection because the scoring came from several places. Mitchell scored 27, Cunningham scored 20 and made 6 three-point shots. Boston scored 19 and collected 11 rebounds. Clark added 12 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. Those numbers do not describe one player carrying a team. They describe a team sharing the weight. That is more important than pretending 12 points somehow looked like 30. They did not. Clark was not secretly the leading scorer. She did not dominate every possession. She did not need to. Indiana had enough creation, spacing, and inside pressure to keep the offense moving without forcing the game through one person. That is what serious teams are supposed to build. A superstar can win a game by taking over. A complete team can win when the superstar does not have to. For Indiana, that difference could shape everything that comes next. The Fever already know Clark can create highlights. They know she can stretch a defense from far beyond the arc. They know she can throw transition passes that turn one small opening into an easy basket. The larger challenge is building an offense that remains dangerous when those highlights are not arriving every minute. Defenses adjust. Shots stop falling. Possessions become slower. Playoff-level pressure can take away the first option and force a team to find the second and third. If Indiana depends on Clark to score at an elite level every night, one cold shooting performance can pull the entire offense apart. Against Las Vegas, that did not happen. Clark made 5 of 11 shots. She made only 1 of 5 from three-point range. Those numbers were ordinary by superstar standards. The result was not ordinary. Indiana scored 109 points. The Fever won by 34. That does not mean shooting no longer matters. It means Indiana found other ways to create pressure. Mitchell could attack gaps. Cunningham could punish defenders who helped too far away from her. Boston could establish position inside and finish around the basket. Clark could move between scorer and organizer without forcing either role. That balance became most visible after Las Vegas cut the lead to 4. The Aces had created the exact situation that often exposes a young team. The margin was small. The opponent had momentum. Every possession felt heavier. Indiana could have answered with panic. Instead, the Fever answered with structure. The ball kept moving. The scoring kept spreading. The defense kept producing stops. The game stopped being competitive. That is why the 43-9 finish should not be reduced to one hot stretch. It was a test of response. Las Vegas created pressure. Indiana did not shrink. The Fever became more decisive. Clark did not try to prove she was the biggest star on the floor with a series of difficult shots. Her teammates did not wait for permission to attack. The offense trusted the next option. That trust matters because pressure usually narrows a young team. Players begin searching for the safest choice. The safest choice often becomes giving the ball to the star and watching. Indiana avoided that pattern. The Fever continued to attack as 5 connected players. The next open player was not a backup plan. She was the plan. That is how a team keeps a defense moving. That is how a 4-point game can disappear before the opponent understands what changed. That is a much more sustainable form of control. It also protects Clark from a burden that no player should have to carry every night. There is a difference between being the center of an offense and being responsible for every result. Clark can still be the player who bends the defense. She can still be the player who starts the action. She can still be the player who changes how the opponent prepare. But Indiana becomes more dangerous when the next decision can come from anyone. Mitchell can see a lane and attack it. Cunningham can receive the ball with space and shoot. Boston can punish a smaller defender near the basket. The Fever do not have to pause and return the ball to Clark before every important action. That freedom makes the offense harder to predict. It also changes how opponents must guard Indiana. A defense can load up against one star. It can send extra attention. It can force the ball out of her hands and hope the rest of the team hesitates. But what happens when the rest of the team does not hesitate? That was the real warning Las Vegas received. Clark did not have to score 30 for Indiana to look powerful. Taking the ball away from her did not remove every threat. Even when her own shot was not falling from deep, the Fever still had enough offense to create separation. This is where the 600 assist record becomes more than a personal achievement. The milestone fits the version of Indiana that appeared in this game. Clark has reached 600 assists faster than anyone because passing has never been a secondary part of her game. It has always been part of the pressure she creates. Her range forces defenders to step higher. Her vision allows her to see the next opening. Her willingness to pass gives teammates a reason to keep moving. The record does not prove Indiana has solved every offensive problem. It does prove Clark has been creating for others at a historic pace. The most revealing part of the night may be how naturally the record arrived. There was no need to stop the game and build every possession around the milestone. Clark did not stay on the floor to chase a larger total. Before the game, Indiana planned to keep her between 20 and 25 minutes. She played 24. The Fever stayed inside that range. They still won by 34. That detail matters because Indiana did not need to extend her workload just to protect the result. Clark could sit. The offense could continue. Mitchell could still attack. Boston could still work inside. Cunningham could still stretch the floor. The team did not disappear when the superstar rested. For a team with serious ambitions, that is one of the most valuable developments possible. A long season asks more from a roster than one brilliant player. There will be nights when the shot is not there. There will be games when the opponent traps early. There will be moments when foul trouble, fatigue, or defensive pressure changes the plan. A team that has only one way to win will eventually meet an opponent that takes it away. Indiana showed another way. The Fever showed they could win through balance. They showed they could respond to pressure without abandoning their identity. They showed that Clark can influence a game without controlling every ending. That does not make her less important. It makes her importance harder to measure with one number. The easiest story would be to say Clark carried Indiana without scoring. That is not what happened. The stronger story is that Indiana became strong enough that nobody had to carry the entire team. Mitchell did not rescue Clark. Cunningham did not cover for a failed performance. Boston did not save an offense that had stopped working. They were all part of the offense. Clark was part of the structure connecting them. That is what balance looks like when it is real. The ball finds the right player. The defense rotates. The next player attacks before the defense can recover. One possession ends with Mitchell. Another ends with Cunningham. Another ends with Boston. Clark may finish the play. She may make the final pass. She may make the pass before the final pass. The important thing is that Indiana reaches a good decision. That is the difference between an offense built around one player and an offense connected by one player. Indiana does not need to reduce Clark to make the team more balanced. It needs to use the attention around her to create better opportunities for everyone. This game offered a clear example of what that can become. The Fever scored 109 points, with Clark taking only 11 shots. They produced 4 players with at least 12 points. They turned a 4-point game into a blowout. They reached the final stretch without asking one player to solve everything. That is why the night mattered more than the 12 points suggested. Still, one game cannot answer every question. It cannot guarantee Indiana will repeat this balance against every opponent. It cannot prove the Fever are ready for every playoff situation. The next defense may switch more aggressively. The next game may become slower and more physical. The next close finish may demand better execution in the final 2 minutes. A regular season blowout cannot erase those questions. It can reveal a blueprint. Indiana now has evidence that its best version may not be the version where Clark takes every important shot. Its best version may be the one where her presence creates choices. That is a more difficult team to guard. It is also a more difficult team to break. When one option disappears, another can take over. When Clark misses from deep, Mitchell can score. When the perimeter closes, Boston can work inside. When the defense collapses, Cunningham can punish the open space. Clark remains central because she can see those choices and help the offense reach them. That is what the 600-assist milestone represents. Not just volume, not just speed, connection. Clark entered the league with a reputation built around spectacular shooting. Now, one of her first major historical marks is about helping other players score. That does not replace the shooting. It completes the picture. The most dangerous version of Clark is not only the player who can score from anywhere. It is the player who can force a defense to react, read that reaction, and trust the next teammate. The most dangerous version of Indiana is not the team that waits for Clark to save every possession. It is the team that uses her pressure to unlock everyone else. Against Las Vegas, those two ideas came together. Clark scored 12 points. Indiana won by 34. She reached 600 career assists faster than any player in WNBA history. The numbers belong together after all. The scoring total showed what Indiana did not need. The final score showed what the team had become for one night. The assist record showed why Clark could still shape the game without owning every shot. Now the real test begins. Can Indiana repeat this balance when the game is closer? Can Mitchell, Cunningham, and Boston remain aggressive when defenses change? Can Clark stay involved without feeling that every possession must end with her? Can the Fever trust this structure when the pressure becomes heavier? One game gives no guarantee, but it gives Indiana something valuable, a model. A team that can survive only when its superstar explodes is always vulnerable. A team that can dominate while its superstar scores 12 has more possibilities. That is why this performance mattered. Not because 12 points were secretly spectacular, not because Clark carried the Fever. It mattered because Indiana showed that Clark may no longer have to carry everything. The Fever did not shrink around their star. They expanded around her. And if that balance continues, the most important part of this game will not be the record Clark reached. It will be the version of Indiana that appeared beside her. Subscribe if you want to follow the next test, because the question is no longer whether Caitlin Clark can dominate a game. We already know she can. The question is whether Indiana can keep dominating when she does not need to.